So, we created a ChatGPT account and started asking it some questions. Now, the next step in our introduction to ChatGPT is to ask more specific questions or specific prompts. And that is what we are going to discuss today. The reason this is important is that if you type a question into ChatGPT, which is similar to almost anyone else typing that question, if it's just a direct question, then your answer will be very generic and it won't be specific to your use case. And so that is why we want something to get a bit more specific for your use case, not just something that anyone else could have asked. Now, what I'm going to teach you today is a tool that the experts actually use, but it is not an expert level tool, if that makes sense. These are 5 simple steps that you can use just in your day-to-day use of ChatGPT, and you can use them interchangeably or all at once. It does take a bit more time in asking those questions, but by following these steps, you will get a more accurate response to your questions. And again, the quality of ChatGPT's output is only proportional to the quality of the input. Let me say that again. The level of quality of question that you are asking ChatGPT, by those standards, the ChatGPT will respond. So the more specific your question is, the more specific the answer will be. The more generic your question is, the more generic the answer will be. So let's dive into 5 strategies that will help you get more accurate prompts. And once again, follow along with me and do this practically yourself. Tip number 1, be clear and specific. On the left-hand side will be our generic question. So let's say, how can I be more productive? And it gives you a good, although generic answer to your question. Set clear, achievable goals, use the right tools, eliminate distractions, develop routines and habits, adopt time management techniques, and so forth. So this is pretty much run-of-the-mill that you would expect anybody with a bit of common sense will tell you, okay, to be more productive. Now, if on the right we ask the question more clear and more specific, then the answer should be more clear and specific. So instead of saying, how can I be more productive? Let's say, according to research, give me the top 3 things I can do at work today to be more productive. So there you can see we asked it to give, based on research, to make it 3 things, and we specified for work today. Let's see what it gives us. Based on research in productivity and workplace effectiveness, here are 3 actionable steps to boost your productivity today. Firstly, prioritize and break down tasks. So that is already different to set clear and achievable goals, which is a very vague answer. So take your tasks for today, and it tells you why it works and how to do this. Then adopt time blocking techniques, and then 3rd step, reduce distractions. So already I know that this is something that I can use for my work immediately. It's not vague like use the right tools, which is important, don't get me wrong. But you still have to do some more work now to ask, okay, which tool should I use? Notion, Trello, Todoist, anything else, or something like that. So here we have eliminate distractions and reduce distractions. Let's see what the difference is. Identify and reduce distractions by setting boundaries with your phone, social media notifications. Okay, once again, vague. Consider apps like Focus at Will or Forest, which this is quite nice, that promotes concentration or gently limits screen time. All right, so that's what we got on the left-hand side. On the right-hand, we have why it works. Distractions and task switchings have a significant negative impact on productivity. Even short interruptions can increase error rates and time to reorient yourself. Setting up your environment for focus helps you sustain attention and produce high quality work. Okay, so it tells you why it works. I would say this is important, but not that specific necessarily. How to apply it: mute non-essential notifications. Set your phone on do not disturb. So it tells you more specifically what to do. Use productivity apps like Focus at Will or Freedom, same as we have on the left, to block distracting sites. Let colleagues know your focus hours. So it gives you more actionable tasks, if that makes sense. So that is our first tip. Be clear and specific. The second tip that I started using, which is really useful, is creating a role. So to assign a character to ChatGPT for that conversation. Now to do that, let's create new conversations. Let's say, for example, give me 3 ways I can inspire my employees. So there it is, already a bit more specific. I would even add more complexity to this if I would usually ask this question. And there we've got that answer. 3 impactful ways to inspire employees: share your vision, provide opportunities for growth, and foster a culture of recognition. Okay, now let's create a role. And how I usually do that is I actually add a first prompt to tell ChatGPT who it is, and then I ask my question. So how I do that is I say, you are an inspirational leader of a tech company. You have all the skills and knowledge of, let's take somebody who's inspirational, of Simon Sinek, for example. I will ask you some questions now. Right, and now it's going to basically absorb that and process that. That is, you see, ChatGPT now has memory. So this is actually good that it pops up. ChatGPT will automatically remember details and preferences you share in your conversations, carrying them between chats. A smart assistant's memories are used to give you more relevant responses and may be used to train our models if you have our model training enabled. Okay, that's something else we'll discuss in another video. You're in control. Review or clear specific memories, restart from scratch, or turn the feature on or off in settings. So what that means is if you go to settings on the top here, you can change some of the information here. So personalization, for example, here's the memory that it talked about. So if this toggle, if you switch it on or off, it basically tells ChatGPT to remember the conversation or not. If you keep it on, then you can do this role prompting as in a way that I'm doing it now. If you click manage, you should be able to clear it as well. Yes, there on the right. So you can clear it as well. Okay, if you don't need it anymore. So now I created this role and ChatGPT's memory is updated. Thank you for the trust. I'm ready to dive into your questions you have. Let's go deep and explore ideas that can lead to real impact. So let's ask exactly the same question now. Here, give me 3 ways I can inspire my employees. And let's see how different the response would be. Okay, here are 3 powerful ways to inspire a team. So firstly, it's looking at Simon Sinek's ways. And one of his most popular books is Start With Why. And so define a clear why and communicate it constantly. So that is already something that's more specific to Simon Sinek. Empower ownership and autonomy, model consistency and integrity. So you can see this is quite different to what we have on the left here. So this is true, but I want to say this is more true if that is possible. This is more specific and more niched down to your need. So I'm not going to read through all of that now, but that's just the difference in answers that you can expect when you start assigning roles. Number 3, guide the tone and the style. So you can tell ChatGPT how it is supposed to respond. So for this example, let me just clear the memory as I just showed you. Clear ChatGPT's memory. So now we're going to start a new conversation. Okay. We're going to ask ChatGPT something on the left in a general way, and on the right, we're going to tweak the tone, how we want the response to be. So let's say, explain geological formation types, something like that. So it's giving us all the information, which is really useful. This is what ChatGPT does. But you can now, this is a lot to read, so you can change this as well. So let's say, explain geological formation types. I'm going to put this on the right. For a 5-year-old, yes, let's just do it like that, in a friendly manner, whatever that means. And look at it. All right, let's go on a little adventure through Rockland. So here you can see it already adjusts the entire message to be more appropriate to a 5-year-old, and I would say most adults actually. Because, as you know, you don't understand something until you can explain it to a 5-year-old. So this is actually a really good tool for adults to use to make sure that they actually understand the topic that they want to talk about. So we've got fire rocks, layer rocks, change rocks. This just shows you the difference. And you can, if you read this, you can already see that it's more appropriate to a 5-year-old. Think of a volcano deep inside the earth. It's super hot, so hot that some rocks turn into a hot, gooey soup called magma. Okay, so, which is correct. It's just more appropriate to a 5-year-old. So just one last thing on this, which is tone, is you can change the tone to give you the knowledge in a specific, firstly in a specific language or a specific dialect, or in a, let's say, a different accent. So let's change this prompt and say, okay, give me the information as if you were Winnie the Pooh. Oh, bother. So there you can see, rocks are quite curious things, aren't they? Let me see if I can explain it in a way that makes sense, even to a bear with a small brain like me. That's cute. All right. So that is what you can change if there's something that you need to have explained differently and not just in a generic way. That is how you can use tone and style. Lastly for this actually, if I want to translate this, I can do that as well. So I can say, translate this in French. Les rochers des feux, rochers ignés, alors tout au fond de la terre, and so forth. So there you go. I think that is pretty useful as well and important to check your tone. The fourth tip is layered prompts. That is essentially what we started doing here on the right when we created the role, but it basically refines ChatGPT's answer so that you don't just use the first one that you receive. So let's start with new conversations, and let's say I need to do a business strategy. I need to write a business plan. Help me with a business plan for my startup. Okay, that's what we've got on the left. Let's start by narrowing down some details. So here it actually asks you to layer your question as well. Could you tell me more about your startup? Specifically, what problems are you aiming to solve? What products or services and so forth? So this is actually creating a layer to it. Now, I see one thing that popped up here is a message here at the bottom. You've hit the free plan limit for GPT 4.0. So what this means is unless you pay for ChatGPT, you will have limited access to their most premium model, which is in this case GPT 4.0. And you can only have a certain length of conversation with it, and then they move you down to a lower quality service. So the answers might not be as accurate as what you would get in 4.0. It tells you that the model does reset after 2:58 p.m., which is, what is that, 4 hours from now. So you can wait, or you can continue using it and see how useful that would be for you. I'm not even going to use the right-hand side for this. I'm just going to continue. This doesn't mean you have to stop your conversation. You can still continue. But what I quite like to do with the layering is to tell ChatGPT to ask me questions. So I'm going to say, ask me questions to help me build a business plan. Let's say one by one. And then it starts asking you a question. Firstly, what is the main idea or concept behind your startup? Describe the product. And so you can answer it. I'm not going to continue with that now. But that gives you just a layered response to get it refined as much as you want. Then number 5, last but not least, is give context and give examples. This is extremely useful to tell GPT what answer you are expecting. So let's use the screen on the right, and we say, write a reply to this email. Okay. So now it's asking you to please provide the content of the email. So for our demo email, I'm going to say, write an email addressed to Daniel to request AI automation services. So I'm just going to, this is just for our example here. So I'm going to take this like that. I'm not even going to read it. So back to our example on the right, I said, write a reply to this email. Okay, so there, if I paste this in, it's going to essentially give me a generic ChatGPT response similar to what you want, or what I just got on the left. So now we can customize this, and we can say, write a reply to my business email account in a professional yet friendly manner. So here it gives a little bit of context. It's a business email account. It's not just a generic one. This is for first-time contacts to my business. So it is important that your response not be generic. So there I'm adding some context. Now, in terms of examples, I can say, for example, I would say, and then you can actually add examples of what tone or how you would normally want your question or want the email answered. So let's say, for example, let's just make this one. Thank you for your mail. I will put you in contact with with the right, let's say, colleague, or with the right consultant to address your query. Okay, let's put it like that. And then I've added some context and an example. A rule of thumb is actually to give 3 examples. This gives ChatGPT a better idea of how to normally respond, so how you use your words in an email. But what you would have here is something that's a bit more specific. What I don't like is, and what often happens in ChatGPT, is the language is a bit frilly and a bit too eccentric for my liking. So I would say something like, tone down your language to be a bit more phlegmatic, for example. And then there's thank you for your email. I appreciate your interest in AI automation services. I'll connect you with your consultant team who can assist you with your queries and discussions further. Okay, so that is normally how I would reply to an email, which is a bit more straight to the point, no too excited about this email. And so as you can see, we went from hi, sender's name, thank you for reaching out. I'm glad to hear you're interested in leveraging AI automation service for your project. I believe that's a lot we can explore together. And So if you like this, yes, that's fine. But then if you add some context, it actually just changes it a little bit to be more specific to your use case, because you need to trust your agent that you're building or your responses, that you can use this without tweaking it too much in your responses. So that is step 5, is give context and give examples. Now, as I said earlier, take these prompts and start experimenting with them. Start combining them and create a prompt that you can reuse for your ChatGPT to get the answers that you are looking for specific. And if there are any tips that I didn't cover here that works for you, please write it in the comments so that I can explore that as well for my own business needs. Just a quick recap. What we covered today is be clear and specific, use role playing, adjust your tone and your style, layer questions to get a more tailored response. Number 5, add context and examples for your use cases. But where this really comes into its own is when you combine all of those tips to create one prompt before you start asking ChatGPT questions. So what we've learned today is that by combining these 5 tips or using them individually will increase the quality of the responses that you get from ChatGPT. So from now on, don't just type in a question straightforward and get a generic answer. Get something tailored to your use case, because ChatGPT can do that. So instead, back to our library analogy from a previous video, instead of ChatGPT looking at the whole library and the whole world to give you your answers, try and niche down to tell it to look in a specific section, in a specific row, in a specific book for the answers that you are looking for. In the next video, we will look at how people have combined these prompts to create their own custom GPTs and how you can access those GPTs for your own business case.